Hi, I'm Lisa Sabaniak from Life Like You Mean It, and today we're talking about surrender. This video is in three parts. First, we're going to talk about what is surrender. What does that even mean to surrender? Second part, we are going to talk about what surrender is not, so we can be very clear here. And part three, probably most importantly, is how do you do it? So let's get started. So, in part one, we're going to talk about what it means to surrender. And to me, what surrender is essentially the absence of resistance. And so, what that means is that we want to surrender to what is. We want to acknowledge that what is happening instead of trying to resist what is actually happening. So, the example I like to use for this is something I think that most of us can relate with, and that is the COVID-19 pandemic. All of us were impacted in one way, shape, or form from the pandemic. And so, this one is something that most of us can resonate with. So essentially, during the pandemic, all governments around the world were faced with decisions on what to do to try to mitigate this, try to deal with it in the best way possible. And a lot of those governments decided to go under lockdown. Now, some people were in agreement of this, and some people were obviously, they disagreed with this choice. Some people were all right with the decision to go into lockdown, but then they disagreed with some of the other ways that, it was implemented or what was expected of us or etc. So, regardless of where you stood on that, you can probably relate to either yourself or knowing somebody else that really went through a very long resistance to the lockdown. And this might still be going on. I'll give you an example from my personal life. I have somebody in my extended family who, every time that I spoke to them, now keep in mind, I live in the UK, my family is in Canada. So I don't get a opportunity to see them and hang out with them very often. So having phone calls with them on Zoom or Skype or whatever is really important to me. And in several of these conversations that we were having, this particular family member just really wanted to talk about all the things that the government had done wrong and was doing wrong. They were really focused on this energy of kind of stuck in the animosity towards and the resistance towards the lockdown, that we shouldn't be in it, that this is what should have been done instead, etc., etc. And my side of it was I finally had to say, but it is happening, right? We can resist it as much as we want to, but all that really means is that we are putting energy into something by saying that we have no control over it. Right? We're putting our energy into the problem. We're putting our energy into being stuck, about not having a say, whatever that is. And that is different from surrendering to it, acknowledging that this is happening, right? We are in lockdown. So there isn't any real point of resisting the lockdown. It is here. So that brings me to part two, which is what surrender is not. So, say you're in a relationship that is not working. Surrendering doesn't mean that you accept this and say, okay, well, it isn't working. So I'm just stuck in a relationship that is terrible for me. No, it is surrendering to the fact that it is not working. This is happening. You are being faced with the fact that this is not the right relationship for you any longer. And now you've got a choice. You actually have all the power because you have a choice on whether or not this is what you would like to stay in. And if it's not, then you have the power to remove yourself from that situation. And if it is something that for whatever reason you want to continue with, then you can choose, you have the power to stay in that relationship. But you want to do it without resisting what is actually happening. That will keep your anxiety more at bay, right? And keep you focused in the present rather than focusing on the past or in a future that hasn't happened yet. Side note, If you are loving this video, and I know that you are, I have a beautiful meditation for you that is surrendering control. The link for that is in the description below. So go on ahead and access that now. So part three of our video here is how in the world do you do it? Like many things that I talk about specifically, is awareness, right? Our first order of business here is to raise our awareness as to what we're doing. So when you look at things that you are fighting against, things that are causing conflict, things that are causing animosity, where your thoughts go when you wake in the morning, where they go when you are falling asleep at night, any difficult relationships that you have in your life, or conversations that you have, or situations that you're involved in, all of these types of things are places where we can stop and start to take a look at those and say, all right, because I'm having a conflict with this particular person or in this situation, doesn't mean that I need to accept that they are in my life. It doesn't mean that I have to just succumb to being treated this way or not feeling like I'm being heard or whatever it is that's happening there. But it does mean that instead of mulling over in my brain over and over again all of the things that this person has done to me or said to me or made me feel this way or that way or whatever is happening inside your head about this situation, instead of allowing that to continue, we purposefully stop with intention. We actually stop all of that narrative, stop all of that conflict that we have going on internally, and we just allow ourselves to accept this is happening. I don't get along with this person. I'm not happy in this situation, or whatever it is. There is no need for me to resist that. It is okay that I am unhappy in this situation. It's okay that I don't get along with this person. I don't have to. I don't have to get along with them. I don't have to solve this problem. I just have to acknowledge that it is. And now we can move into the, well, what power do I have here? What control do I have? Do I want to be in this relationship? Do I want to be in this situation? Is this something I want to continue with? No, it's not. Okay. What are the steps that I can take to resolve this problem on my end? Knowing that I can't control this other person or the situation, events, whatever is happening, because they're outside of me. So I can't control any of that. What do I have control over? Right? And you start to realize a few things here, right? One of the things that you realize is how much power you actually have in your life. How much of the conflict and the resistance that you have going on in your life is because of a feeling of being out of control, when in fact you actually have all the control. It's just a shift that needs to happen there for you to recognize that awareness. One of the other things that you will realize is that if you need to stay in the situation, maybe it's a job, maybe you don't have another job to go to. And before you would leave this particular job, you would need to have that set up. And that just hasn't happened yet. Maybe it's a relationship, maybe it's a family member that you're just, I can't walk away from this particular person. Maybe you don't want to walk away from this particular person, but the scenario, the not getting along or whatever is causing the resistance there, that's what you are ready to walk away from. When you recognize that a lot of the constraint, a lot of the conflict that is going on there is because of the resistance to the fact that you disagree, that you don't get along, right? When you just allow yourself to surrender to the fact that you don't have to, this is going on. You don't agree, right? You are having a disagreement or an argument. That just is. It is happening. When you allow that to come up for you, you start to realize, well, that is happening, and I have control over how I interpret that information, how much focus I put on that information. If I can surrender to the fact that it is happening, can I also surrender my reaction to it so that it doesn't have to be something that's all consuming in my life? If you haven't seen my video about surrendering to the flow of life, then this is a great place for you to just stop here and go ahead and click this card. Go and check out that video now, where I go deeper into my own surrender experiment and what that looks like to surrender to the flow of life. You can also find this link in the description of this video. I hope that you found this helpful. I sure love to serve you in this way. If you haven't subscribed already, please go ahead and do so so you never miss another video. Bless.